else.
Right, so Deontay Wilder had 1 hour and 10 minutes with IFL TV, Kugan Cassius, and how Kugan Cassius managed to go through that long with him, I will never know. Big props for him. But ultimately, to be honest, I feel like Kugan could have doubled up on some of his answers, kind of like bounced back a little bit. But anyway, all that aside, I can kind of understand why, because this interview went on, because this whole interview, with the amount of questions that Kugan actually asked, could have been done in 5-10 minutes, to be fair. So 1 hour and 10 minutes is outrageous. And there's a reason for that, and I want to get onto it in a second. But the point of this particular video here is, with the many different contradictions and things that he said in this interview, there's one of them that stood out the most for me. And a couple of the other ones I'll touch on other videos. But on this particular one, he was asked about, he accepted $15 million. Now, ultimately, he didn't sign the contract, but he accepted it, okay? And his reasoning being there's no date and venue. Basically, he was making up excuses. And he did say that, with people asking him, what about Wilder vs. Fury? Why is the date and venue not announced? All that kind of thing. And he's like laughing, saying, people need to be patient, But yet you wasn't. You refused to sign a fight with Anthony Joshua for undisputed for $15 million. Because of no date and venue, but even though people knew when the fight was, right? Now, that bit aside, $15 million, he gave 3 different answers for the same one, because he actually forgets what it is that he says. And I'm going to get onto all that in a second. Now, 3 answers he gave were, the first one, which was, I accepted 15 million because I just wanted to fight. And had he left it at that, that'd have been fine. But no, a little bit later on, he said, but I know my value. In other words, I'm worth so much more than 15 million. And then a little while later, he's saying how he doesn't care about money. He's good, he's happy. I don't care about money, my kids are secure, and da-da-da-da. But yet you didn't accept $15 million because it's not about the money, right? Now, that's those 3 points. Now, there was a whole heap of things that were going on in this interview. And for those of you who managed to somehow lose an hour of your life to go right the way through it, I feel for you, really, because it was just complete waffle. And the reason that is complete waffle was this. Okay, now, I've interviewed hundreds of people. And for those of you who do interviews yourself and have been interviewed on multiple occasions, you'll know what it is I'm talking about. And if you don't know, and if you haven't heard this one before, then this may actually help you out for an interview in the future, because you may well see it. Now, when you're interviewing people for a particular role, obviously the applicant needs to be pretty confident that they're going to get the job, and you pretty much know what the questions are going to be. They're pretty bog standard questions, right? Why do you want the job? How long was you in your previous employment for? What kind of experience have you got? Rah. Now, there's a technique among many, and I was actually sent on courses for this, which is bizarre why you would even be sent on courses for interviews. For me, I just went on a gut feeling, is this person good enough or not? But ultimately, just for paperwork, because obviously my boss and etc. needed some kind of justification as to why these people get jobs. But there's certain techniques, and one technique that I used to use quite a bit, which was making the person that you're interviewing squirm a little bit. It's a way of testing character, and it could be something simple like this. Why do you want the job? What makes you the right person for this position? And then they'll say, well, because I've got this experience and I've got that, and they'll give an answer within about a minute. And that'll be fine if they just stopped. So they'll stop because they've given their answer. It's a pre-scripted answer that they've already got in their head. Okay, so rather than the interview just move on to the next question that they've already prepared in their own minds and that as well, you test their character by not asking the next question. Just wait a few seconds, look at them, smile and nod, just a little bit. And it works so many times, it really does. There's like a little switch in people's brain where they go, that's not enough, he wants more. Because obviously the answers that they give you write down, okay? So they're thinking, oh crap, that wasn't enough, what else can I say? And before you know it, their mouth is moving and the brain is not in gear. And that's ultimately at the point they lose the job. Because the answer that they give originally is great. There's nothing wrong with the answer. But for those who just sit there and smile back and nod back, that's great, because then you just move on to the next question. Okay, but those who are not confident will just start spilling things out of their mouth. And that's pretty much what Wilder was doing. For those of you who will remember WWF back in the day, you see like the Ultimate Warrior. And for those who used to watch WWF and know Ultimate Warrior, you'll know exactly where I'm going with this one. He used to do rants in front of the camera, talking about how the little warrior's blood's in his veins and he got a call from the gods and he's going to do this, and he went on a fishing trip and whatever else it was. Okay, just absolutely talking waffle. But people used to like it because he sounded good when he did it. People didn't have a clue what he was talking about. And this is pretty much what happened with Wilder. Because as I say, Coogan, he doesn't just bounce off questions. Unless he really, really knows you. Like, he really, really knows Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. So he can just bounce and interrupt at times. But with Wilder, he didn't interrupt because he doesn't know Wilder that well. He knows him, of course he does. But not that well. So he didn't want to interrupt him and just let Wilder waffle on. So, of course, when he says about the 15 million part, Wilder will go, well, because I really wanted to fight. And rather than just leave it at that, he'd then kind of like try to almost expand on it, but not expand on it. Do you know what I mean? He would just, he'd start talking about how the birds are in the trees and the grass is green and the weather is beautiful and there's children over there playing in the park and there's other children who's not as well off, and he's been through so many things, and he helps people out all the time, and da-da-da. I'm like, okay, that's all great, but what's that got to do with 15 million that you accepted but didn't sign the fight? Do you see what I mean? This is the technique. It goes back to the interview, which is why I mentioned it, where you know those who are not confident because they waffle and talk about crap that is not even related to it. And that's what he did throughout the entire interview, the entire thing, because he's not confident. He's not a leader. He's been led. He doesn't know what's going on. To give 3 different answers for the same question of 15 million. Now, Coogan, at this point, what he should have said was interrupted and said, okay, but why didn't you sign? That's what he should have said, but he didn't. He let Wilder waffle on, and I think Coogan said to himself, you know what, I'm getting nowhere with this one, move on. Because Wilder will just go waffling. Well, I know my worth. And then start talking about whatever else it was. Yesterday I had couscous, and the day before that I had chicken, but really I prefer pasta and sometimes rice. I mean, he didn't actually say those words, okay, but this is the point, because I don't actually remember what it was that he was talking about, because he would just go off on some kind of tangent, saying how he does things for people and charity and how he doesn't talk about it. Well, he does, because he puts the damn thing on social media quite a bit. So we know that he does. But no matter what, a lot of the things that he said was unnecessary. It really was unnecessary. He exposed himself, and he knows he didn't take the fight with Joshua because he didn't want it. He wanted some fame. He wanted a bit of pump up. So whoever he fights next, he's going to get a bit more publicity. He's going to get people like me talking about him and other people talking about him, which, by the way, he did say that there's so many channels out there, what they call themselves, new media or something, who are just doing things for clicks by using his name. Yes, fanboy, he's talking to you. Okay, he's talking to this new media, whatever they are. Yes, he's talking about even his own fans who are just using his name and Joshua's name to get clicks. Listen, nothing wrong with that. But he is talking to you, so don't think he's not. He is talking to you. Okay, but anyway, that aside. So he gave 3 different answers for the same question of $15 million. And that in itself shows he doesn't know what he really wants, that he never actually wanted to fight. Because if he did, all he had to put down was get a pen in his hand and go, Deontay Wilder, on paper. That's all he had to do. And the fight would have been on. And he'd be fighting him in the next couple of weeks. But no, he didn't want to do that. So, which is why he started waffling on. As I said in the interview, if you start waffling, you lose the interview. So he lost his interview to Kugan Cassius, not just on the 15 million, but a whole many other subjects. So Wilder, sorry mate, the shoe just fell straight out of your mouth. We know. I'm not a psychologist, okay? I don't care if he's twitching around for the entire interview, which he was. He looked very uncomfortable because he knew he was lying or just didn't know the answer. He looked very, very uncomfortable. But as I said, I'm not a psychologist. I don't care if he looks you in the eye. I don't care if somebody looks me in the eye when they're talking to me. I don't care about any of that. All I care about is the words that come out of your mouth. Do I believe them or do I not? That's all I care about. Wilder failed that interview. He knew exactly that Kugan was onto him. All Kugan had to do was up it a little bit. Just ask a couple more questions around that. And he'd have had Wilder finished. And I think Kugan Cassius knew that too, which is why he didn't answer. He didn't want to make Wilder any more uncomfortable than he clearly was. So Wilder didn't want the fight. 15 million. All he had to do was sign the contract. But he didn't do it. 3 different answers. 3. Go check it out yourself. Drop your thoughts below. Click that thumbs up and subscribe. Catch you all on the next video.